Shed 7 started their 30th anniversary year in style when A Matter of Time became their first ever #1 album. But there's much more to come as 2024 unfolds, and Rick Witter of Shed 7 joins me now. How are you doing, Rick?
Hello, Phil. You all right, mate?
Yes, I'm very good. Yourself? It's a privilege to have you on the show. And I must first of all congratulate Shed 7 on a fabulous record-breaking #1 album, A Matter of Time. But we're going to chat about that a little bit later on.
Okay, yes, and it is record-breaking, but as you say, we'll discuss that later.
Yes, we'll chat about that a little bit later on, because there's some surprises on that album, which I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy hearing about as well. Now, I celebrated 30 years in broadcasting last year. Has Shed 7 got even better with age?
Well, clearly, looking at your good self, you quite clearly are something to aspire to be, aren't you, Phil, right there?
Well, thank you very much.
You've even just told me you've gone for a haircut just to impress me, which is very impressive.
That's right. Yes, I've got. It's because it's all, I've got. I'm going to be mixing with, people who have got #1 albums and things in a very showbiz. I've got to try and join them. If you can't beat them, join them.
Well, that's it. And now you are mixing with the hoi polloi, aren't you? So there you go.
I certainly am. Now, for listeners who are just discovering Shed 7's music, how did the band originally get together?
Well, do you know what? Just the fact that you've said that, people who might just be discovering Shed 7, I'm quite jealous of those people if they like what they're hearing, because I remember when I was about 17, maybe 1988, I remember discovering an album by R.E.M. called Green, and I loved it. Wow. And I listened to it a lot. And then when I dug a little bit deeper, I discovered they had about 6 or 7 albums prior to that. And that was a massive thrill, because there's nothing better than hearing something you like and discovering that there's loads of it to sift through. So I spent the next few months sifting through all of R.E.M.'s back catalogue, and it was a great experience. So as I say, if somebody's recently stumbled upon Shed 7 and they like it, it's a thrill. So go back and enjoy all of our past, please. And if you don't like it, just move on and find something else to listen to, love. But, we've been, me and Paul, the guitarist, met when we were 11 at school in first year at big school. And we kind of bonded over a shared love of music at that age. And then when we were about 13, we thought, why don't we try and give this a go and see if we can do anything with this music lark. So we've been attempting it for an awful long time. When we say we're 30 years old this year, that's since the debut album came out in 94.
Yes.
But you could add an extra 10 years onto that with me and Paul actively kind of creating before that. So, we put in a lot of groundwork. We were in school bands together, under lots of different names. Lots of old dusty cassettes in attics with stuff that we used to do way beyond Shed 7.
Excellent.
So it's a really great feeling to finally say that we can walk out and say we've had a #1 record, which is amazing, because I'm sure most people would aspire to hit the top of the charts. I mean, if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. We've got a healthy back catalogue of songs that we can go out and play in front of people, and people love coming to see us play live. But it just, it's just a great thing to put on the poster, isn't it? The #1 selling artist, Shed 7.
It certainly is. And where was the biggest place that you ever played when you were starting out, before you became the big Shed 7?
Well, probably pubs, small clubs. I mean, before we were kind of known, we would do what any normal band should do and just do gigs and try and play in front of people and try and spread the word for yourself. So, we would do gigs locally. We live in York, so we'd do a lot of local gigs. We'd travel to Leeds and play there, the nearest bigger city. But we'd also get in a minibus and drive to London down the M1, which at that time would have taken about 5 hours.
Yes.
To go to turn up at tea time, to set up, and then to play in a pub in London in front of maybe 3 people, and then pack down and then drive all the way home again and arrive home at 7 a.m. the next morning. So, but every time we did that, for example, before we were signed, and we'd go out of our way to London to play, and we'd play in front of 3 or 4 people, we'd travel home, and a lot of people would be disheartened and, well, what is the point in this? There was nobody there. But that just made me more hungry. It made me, our self-belief was through the roof at that time. We just believed we were absolutely amazing at what we did. And even though we maybe have performed in front of 3 or 4 people, I pretended like I was Bono at Wembley,
Excellent. Well, you've been playing lots and lots of great venues since then, my goodness. Absolutely amazing. Now, you've no doubt been asked this many times, but where did the band name Shed 7 come from?
Oh, Phil, we did used to say to people in the 90s, and we're talking proper major music publications here,
right.
they would always ask us that question. And you would like to think, after having quite a lot of chart success in the 90s, you'd like to think that people might have read on a previous interview why we were called Shed 7.
Yes.
So we did vow we would never answer that question again, but that was in the late 90s when we did that vow. And I can lift it now for you, mate. It is very boring.
An exclusive. Let's hear
well,
it.
It's not, because if you know Shed 7, then you know why we called it. But
right.
We used to try and think of comedy reasons why we're called Shed 7, because the real reason's actually so boring. Right. So we used to sit there trying to think of different excuses of why we were called Shed 7. So we used to say that our drummer lost his virginity when he was 7 in a shed, which wasn't true. And we used to say at this time in the band there was 4 members, so we used to say there was 11 of us and we shed 7 members, and now there's only 4. Right. But the real reason is me and Tom, the bass player, at the point where we were writing songs but we didn't have a band name, me and Tom, the bass player, decided to go to Manchester on the train one day. We were only 18 maybe.
Right.
And as from York to Manchester, you have to go through Leeds train station. And as we departed Leeds train station, just outside of the main station at this time, there was 10 huge sheds, obviously sheds that trains would go in to get fixed or whatever.
Of course.
There was 10 of them, and they had huge doors on them, and each one said Shed 1, Shed 2. The only shed door that didn't say anything on it was Shed 7. So I said to Tom, that must be Shed 7. And for some weird reason, we thought that's a good band name.
And it certainly is. What a great story. That's a quite interesting story there, Rick. I quite like that. Oh, well, there you go then. You've heard that first here on this show, but maybe other stations as well. But yeah, it's a bit of an exclusive for you. But the reason why I asked it is because you always can go on the internet and you can find out all sorts of information, and sometimes the facts are completely incorrect. So I thought I'd get from the horse's mouth, as it were. Excuse the French there.
Well,
Rick.
Yeah, there you go, Phil. You're right. You don't know what to believe these days, because anyone can go on Wikipedia and change anybody's Wikipedia site and put whatever they want on there. So that's true, because I did read once on Shed 7's Wikipedia. Somebody was obviously jobless and bored, because they decided to go on our Wikipedia rather than find a hobby and do something interesting with their lives, or indeed get a job. Right. They decided to go on our Wikipedia site and write this big story about the fact that I used to work in a shoe shop. But not only did I work in a shoe shop, but it transpired that I was that bad at customer relations that I was made to work in the warehouse at the back. So for somebody, and that's obviously not true. No. So for somebody to sit at home and think of a story about someone they've never met, and then go online and doctor somebody else's web page to create falsehoods, is a mental thing. It's a crazy, crazy thing. Godspeed.
Indeed, yes, because it's happening all over the shop at the minute. But yes, at least we've got the true facts from Rick Witter there of Shed 7.
Phil, to be fair, it could have been worse, couldn't it? That's actually quite naive, funny story.
It's quite tame, that really. But
it really is.
People really are getting, it's like myself. My face could be on anything. I could be selling all sorts of products.
You should be on the window of the barber shop to entice people in. That's what you should be, Phil.
That's right. As seen on the interview with Shed 7's Rick Witter. Excellent. Yes, I'll be selling locks of hair later on there. That'll probably appear on somewhere on the internet now as well. Now, your first top 10 single in the UK was Going for Gold, scoring as high as number 8. What was it like getting your first top 10 hit, and where was the band when you found out?
Well, you're talking 1996 here, so that's a very difficult question to answer of where I was, because I can't actually remember what I did yesterday, to be honest with you. So I can't really give you an answer on where I actually was. I'm presuming we would have been in the UK promoting it. It was obviously a great feeling knowing we'd had our first top 10 hit. At that point, it was the highest charting position we'd got to. We'd had, how many singles had we had out before then? We'd probably had about 5 singles out before Going for Gold had come out. So we'd kind of wiped our feet on the doorstep of rock, and we were just entering through the front door. But, you know, because we'd already had 5 singles and an album out that had done relatively okay for a new act, the whole point really from that point on is just to try and better what you've done. So at that point, we were probably just really pleased that we were kind of maybe crossing over a little bit more into the mainstream. You know, going on major television programmes at the time helped, and there was an awful lot of programmes at that time that included music and bands going on them, you know.
Yes.
Which you don't really get as much anymore. There's hardly any programmes anymore that bands can actually go on and flog their wares, you know. So you've got to cherish these things while you can. So yeah, a great feeling. And if you're into what you do, it just makes you hungry to repeat that success.
Certainly. And talking about, you know, all of these outlets that was around at the time, like Top of the Pops, and even you could appear and even do a live session for MTV. I don't even know, does MTV still exist? I haven't looked for it recently, but it's like everything is totally changed now. Everything's online. You've got to promote yourself online, and you haven't got that kind of, you know, the telly box there, which had, you know, millions of people watching around the television at the same time. You know,
it's all about food now, isn't it? You know, every program seems to just involve somebody cooking food and showing you it.
Yeah. Because I suppose now, if anyone went on Top of the Pops, they would just be standing there with a drum machine and a microphone.
But then if that's the state of the music industry these days, then so be it. I mean, music is very cyclical, so things come and go all the time, you know, and things become overkill because one particular band from a particular genre might get really big, and then suddenly there's another 10 of those type of bands trying to cash in on that, and before you know it, it becomes boring, so everyone moves on to the next thing, and that's age old. That's since music began, I guess. So
it was just wonderful seeing Top of the Pops and seeing a band there in the setting and everything, because it just looked like everyone was just having a great time, and it looked, you know, so good as well, and the sound of all the instruments and everything live as well. Live.
Well, not many bands did play live on Top of the Pops. It was very rare that everyone just mimed. However, I always sang it live when we went on Top of the Pops. The rest of Shed 7 mimed, which meant they could spend the day in the bar waiting around to do the performance, whereas I had to hold a little bit back because I was actually singing it totally live. So I used to try and go out of keys very slightly just to make sure everyone at home knew I was singing it live.
Yeah, because you can add some of the people who sung live as well, they ad-libbed a little bit as well. Or they might even put in on Top of the Pops or something, you know, they put something in. And that was really good, because then you went, wow, you know, these definitely are live, like you say. Do a little bit of something different, and it just proved that you were live.
Exactly that, yes.
Exclusive.
Yes.
Fabulous. Now, in 1999... you released Disco Down, which scored as high as number 13 in the UK Top 40, which was a totally different sound to what your fans were used to. Whose idea was it, and were you surprised at how well it did?
Well, we didn't approach writing Disco Down any differently to any other Shed 7 song, to be honest. It's just what we eventually came up with. We were told to write that song to to publicise a greatest hits album that was coming out. So they wanted 2 brand new songs to put on this greatest hits album to help sell the greatest hits album. So that's kind of pressure in its own way, really, being told, right, we're going to release a greatest hits by you, all of your best songs, and we want you to write 2 songs that are going to fit on this album with alongside all of your best songs. So that immediately is pressure, and makes the process of writing songs not as much fun, because you suddenly presented with a set of rules, whereas if you're an artist, you just sit down and create art and hope for the best. You fly the seat of your pants to an extent, and you write something and hope that people might pick up on it and join in and love it and listen to it. But then to be almost told at this point that, you know, we're going to do this and we want you to write 2 brand new songs, kind of it puts the pressure on. But I believe we kind of did it. You know, Disco Down is still very Shed 7. It's got a bit more of a disco vibe to it, but we didn't approach it in any other way than any other song we've ever written. We always, include in this new album that's doing really well for us, we just sit down. Paul will give me a guitar lick or a guitar riff or a set of chords, and I'll put a melody on it, and then I'll write some words to it, and then we just bash it into song form. So for me, Disco Down is a song now we would never not be able to play live. We've got a certain amount of songs from our past that we'd always have to put into our live sets, because it would cause uproar to our fans if we didn't play them. And Disco Down is just another one of them. It doesn't feel out of place, you know. If we played a song before and after it live, it doesn't feel like it's sticking out because it's so different. So it's just become a Shed 7 song, you know. And who knows what we'll do next? We might go avant-garde. We might go death metal. Who knows? Wow.
That'll be interesting. We'll have to watch this space.
We probably won't, to be honest.
That'll be interesting.
Who knows?
Excellent. Now, in 2003, Shed 7 split and then got together again in 2007 and released the album Instant Pleasures. And in 2017, it went top 10 in the UK album chart. Do you think the rest you all had re-energized the band to make new material and be more creative?
No, again, we didn't really think it through. Instant Pleasures was a bit of an accident, to be honest with you. We didn't really sit down and discuss anything. We were actually in a stage where we were rehearsing to play some festivals, I think. So we'd kind of reformed. We reformed in 2007, and we were just quite happy bumbling along, playing live gigs. You know, we're a very lucky band. We've got a very strong fan base who love what we do and persist on buying tickets to come and see us play it live. And the atmosphere in the room at every gig really is just amazing. We could be in London town on a Saturday night, and it's an amazing atmosphere. But then we could find ourselves somewhere, for example, like Blackburn on a Monday night when it's drizzly and cold and grey, and the atmosphere in the room is exactly the same. We have this really special crowd band appreciation thing going on. So, you know, we found ourselves almost becoming a bit of a nostalgia act by just going out and doing tours and playing our back catalogue. But I think subconsciously we must have started feeling a little bit uncomfortable with that, because there's only so long you can do that before people would lose interest, or perhaps we would start losing interest playing our back catalogue. Yeah. So we kind of accidentally started writing some new songs without any discussion, without any thought. And we just found ourselves, as I say, without really thinking about it, just finding it quite good fun, because we hadn't done it for so long. I mean, Instant Pleasures arrived 16 years after the album before it, which is quite a long time in the scheme of life. So we just amassed a group of songs, some demos, and we didn't know what to do with it. We were thinking, well, they're quite good. And then we started showing them to friends. I mean, literally rough demo form, this. Yeah. We started showing them to family and friends, and they were all saying, well, what are you doing? These are all amazing songs. You need to release it. And we hadn't really even considered it. Right. So we kind of started looking into it, and then ended up releasing it as an album, and it went top 10. So that's amazing. And it's that album's so that came out in 2017. So we've just released one in beginning of 24, so it's just over 6 years. So that's already shaved off 10 years in time-wise between the last one and the time before that. But it kind of took the pressure off us for this album because there was no kind of grand comeback story. And we just really loved writing this last album. We had no pressure on us. And I think that comes across in the songs, really. This new album, A Matter of Time, just sounds really joyful. It sounds like we're all 18 again. It sounds like we're all having a really good time. And that kind of seeps out of the speakers when you listen to it, which is a great thing considering we are now all in our 50s.
Indeed, it does. It absolutely sounds amazing. Now, as you've mentioned there, recently Shed 7 have made official chart history by breaking the record for the biggest gap between debut and first #1 LP for a British rock band. Where were you when the band heard the news, and how did it feel getting this fabulous news after all of those years?
So we were travelling in between Manchester and Liverpool. So we'd spent the week of release visiting record stores, doing acoustic performances, signing vinyl for people, and CDs for people. So we were kind of out and active the whole of the first week that the album had come out. And we were kind of almost doing 2 cities a day. So it was quite full on, quite hard work, a lot of travelling, 2 performances a day, meeting lots of lovely people. So we kind of, through the week, had a sense that we were going to do quite well. We didn't know until the time that it was actually #1, but we knew we were getting updates through the week about how many we were selling and how many #2 was selling and how many #1 was selling. So we were at #1 all through the week.
Wow.
I think we kind of realised by the Wednesday before the Friday announcement, I think on the Wednesday, we were still quite a lot ahead of Lewis Capaldi, who was #2.
Right.
So we kind of thought, and barring a huge surge in Lewis Capaldi fans buying his back catalogue,
yes,
we kind of had an idea that we were going to hold on to the top spot. So, but it was only, you only officially know on maybe 11 in the morning on the Friday. So I think we were travelling between Manchester and Liverpool at that time, and it was a great feeling.
I bet, after all of the hard work as well. And obviously the promotion there that you did, going to all of the record stores, that has really pushed things along as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's nice to go out and meet the people that really like what you do and thank them and shake their hands and ask them what particular songs they like, and then they tell you about their lives. It's a really nice thing to communicate with people. We've always been a quite good band online for, if people communicate with you online and ask you things.
Yes.
I'm on Twitter personally, and if somebody follows me and wants to know something about Shed 7, I'll answer it because it takes a few seconds out of my life to make somebody's day or to make somebody appreciate something about what we do or to answer the question. Apart from if somebody says, what colour underpants are you wearing, which used to happen in the night. Doesn't happen so much anymore because I am 51 years old. I don't think anyone's interested what colour my underwear is these days.
No.
But, the point being is, I don't understand why you wouldn't answer somebody in that respect.
No.
I remember growing up loving bands in the late 80s, early 90s, and I would write to bands in the hope that I might get some type of letter response back.
Yes.
And that could take 6 to 7 weeks, the whole process. Whereas now, if you tweet someone, you can get an answer in seconds. I mean, that's how crazy the whole of life's changed. But again, I would imagine there's a lot of artists out there who don't communicate that much with their fan base. And I just think it's an important part of the process, to be honest.
It certainly is, yes. Keeping in with your fans is absolutely amazing. But yes, you're very kind there doing that. So if you get in touch with Rick of Shed 7, he's definitely going to answer your questions there. But we're probably answering lots of them today in any case, which is good.
Just steer clear of the underwear, yeah?
That's right, we'll stay clear of that question. Yes, we don't want to air the dirty linen on the show. Now, The album that is the number one album features some great tracks, including some collaborations with Witter of the Happy Mondays and Reverend and the Makers, Laura McClure. What was it like in the studio recording with them?
Well, the only featured artist that actually came to the studio was Witter. Laura recorded her parts separately in her own studio and sent them over to us.
Right.
As did Peter Doherty from the Libertines, who performs on one of the songs. He was, I guess artists are busy people, so if they can find a studio near where they're working or whatnot, or if we've got the home studio, it's just as easy these days. We'll send them the song, ask them what they want, what we'd like them to do,
Yes.
ask them to add extra bits if they can think of anything, and then just send it back to us, and then we kind of create something to make it a whole. So it was only really Witter who actually came to the studio to sing it, and that was a great experience. You know, it's always nice to see other artists, especially when they're singing your songs.
Yes.
And you can hear it real time that it's working. I guess we're very lucky in that respect, because all of it on our album did work, but I'm trying to think of an occasion where a band might be with another featured artist and it's not going so well, and how that might go down. But luckily we've not experienced that.
But yes, you can certainly hear a Witter on the track. Now, you've just mentioned Pete Doherty. That was my next thing that I was going to mention. It's one of the standout tracks on the album as far as I've heard the album. And the track's called Throwaways. What was it like approaching Pete Doherty to appear on the single?
So we'd never met the Libertines or Peter, and we played the Bingley Festival in 2022, I think it was, as we were writing the album.
Right.
We did a run of festivals through the summer, and we played the Bingley Festival just before the Libertines on the main stage. So I'm singing away, and then I look to the side of the stage while I'm singing, and Peter Doherty is stood at the side of the stage, but he's not only stood watching us, he's singing every word of our songs.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, all right, okay, so I didn't really realise that you knew who we were even. So after the gig, I went over and introduced myself, and we had a nice chat, and he was telling us that in the 90s he used to sit on his bed at home in his parents' house with his guitar learning Shed 7 songs.
Amazing.
So I thought that was pretty amazing as well, because I wasn't even sure if he'd even heard of us. So, at this point, we already had Witter on board singing on one of the songs, and Throwaways we kind of had as a song. And I just kind of said to him, we're doing a new album. How's about you fancy coming and jumping on one of the songs and helping me sing it? And he just said that I'd love to, you know. And I always knew it would be Throwaways as the song, because it kind of almost suits us and the Libertines in the respect that it's about being a bit of an outcast. It's about not being included. And I think we've certainly felt a little bit like that over the years. And I'm sure the Libertines have as well. So you can almost hear the achingness coming out of the stereo. And it's ace. It's really great to have somebody of Peter's stature on one of our songs. It's amazing.
And it does sound beautiful as well. I mean, it's 6 minutes and 9 seconds as far as I know. I just listened to it before coming on the show, and it is absolutely amazing. And like you say, it is something that does suit like yourselves and Pete Doherty, because it's all to do with, you know, do you belong? But you do belong, if you know what I mean. And you aren't throwaways.
Well, this is it. It's like, whatever people might think of you, it doesn't really matter. You know, if we're not included in your gang, then so be it. We'll just stay in our own little gang. Who cares? You know. So yeah, it's about being throwaways, but in a cool way. Throwaways in a cool way.
It is very cool.
Coolaways. That's what we should have called it.
But yeah, you'll have to catch that on the brand new album, A Matter of Time, the number one album. Now, where can listeners follow you and buy your music?
So if people go to shed7.com, they'll find out everything that they need to know as and when we announce things. We've got all of the usual things on that particular site. There's a store, there's a live gig announcement page. We are about to announce a huge tour at the end of this year to celebrate 30 years.
Wow.
So that's about to be announced, so keep your ears open for that. We're going up and down the country, probably coming to your neck of the woods.
Fabulous.
And we, to celebrate the fact that we are 30 years this year, we have another release coming out later on this year, which I don't really want to say too much about right now. We're still in the process of recording it, but it's sounding pretty special. So who knows, we might even have another top 10 hit later on this year, who knows.
We'll look forward to playing that on the radio, and yes, definitely, hopefully a number one. That's what we want, a number one single.
Well, it'll do what it does, Phil.
We'll have to see what happens there. Now, the vinyl revival is upon us, so what is your favourite vinyl record you have ever bought, and what track would you put on the turntable if you had one next to you? What record would you play for me and say, that is my favourite?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I've got a lot of vinyl at home. I've got this great Rolling Stones Sticky Fingers album at home, and yes. I don't know how many of these they made, but on the front cover it's an Andy Warhol shot, and it's a pair of jeans close up with a zip. But they released a few original copies where they actually put a real zip on the front cover of the record, which is pretty cool. And I've got one of those upstairs. But one of my go-to bands is the Smiths. I love the Smiths. So all of the Smiths product is great. Every album is just amazing. I mean, they only actually existed for about 5 or 6 years, and the amount of songs they created in that time, and nearly all of it's just amazing. But if I want to put a record on and just crack on with other things that I'm doing with it on in the background, then I guess Louder Than Bombs is a good Smiths album. And I know it's a compilation, and it's an American compilation release that Morrissey wasn't very happy with. Right. But it's got a lot on there, so you can just stick it on and you can just get into Smiths heaven for a long time.
That'd be excellent, yes. I look forward to putting the needle on the record on that album in the future. Now, unfortunately, Rick, we've run out of time. I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining me on the show, and congratulations once again for your number one album, A Matter of Time. Say hello to the band, and hopefully next time I speak to you, you've had a number one single as well.
Well, let's hope so, mate. Thank you, Phil. Thank you for the nice chat, and I shall speak to you soon.
Yes, we'll speak to you soon. Now, finally, would it be possible for you to introduce your track, Throwaways, from your record-breaking UK number one album, A Matter of Time?
I can, yes. Hi, this is Rick from Shed 7, and the next song you're going to hear is the final track on our brand new number one selling artist. It features Peter Doherty from the Libertines and Baby Shambles, and it's called Throwaways.
Rick, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you, Phil.